Okay, so today we're joined with Brett Mahoney, who has just recently completed the Winter South Wales Traverse. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Wayne. Nice to speak to you.
Good man, good man. Thanks for joining us today. In terms of your background, I know that you work for an outdoor kind of partnership there. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Cwmbran in South Wales. I don't have any kind of background in sport whatsoever. Didn't participate in sport as a child in any way or anything physically active. Was a very sedentary kind of existence until my late teens, when I kind of started knocking about in the Abergavenny area and getting out into the Brecon Beacons, and kind of found my love for the outdoors there, initially through hiking and a bit of climbing, and that's kind of just expanded from there. And now, yeah, big into long distance ultra running, endurance type sport generally, really.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I know that you're fundraising for the Winter Traverse for the partnership. Can you tell us a little bit about that side of things?
So yeah, I work for a charity called the Outdoor Partnership, and essentially we enhance people's lives through outdoor activities, and that kind of covers all outdoor adventure uh, type activity. We work across Wales and England and Northern Ireland as well. So we deliver a lot of different targeted programs to enhance people's lives through adventure, but specifically for the South Wales Traverse, I was raising money for the inclusive climbing club that we've helped to develop in Llangorse. So that club is for young people and adults that have got mobility limitations, neurodiversity conditions, and it's an opportunity for them to engage in rock climbing. So it's based in Llangorse Climbing Centre, and we've had a lot of support from the centre there and from Manzoku Climbing and Mountaineering. Andy Cummins has been a fundamental part in helping us get that off the ground as well. And yeah, there's a club running there every Monday now where yeah, it's fully inclusive. People can come in and enjoy climbing. So I was raising money to keep that club going and to put some of the volunteers through some climbing qualifications so it can carry on more sustainably in the future.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think that it's really important to have that kind of that drive, that influence, that focus, behind you as well. Sometimes during when it gets hard during these challenges, to know what you're doing it for as well. Would you say that that's a factor?
Yeah, it definitely plays in the back of the mind if you're in that dark spot, which you cannot often get into on these longer days out. Then it adds that element of accountability to it. That you feel like it gets you through, and when those dark times kind of come in, they do roll back out again. So yeah, it's really good.
Your journey in trail running and fell running, that side of things, how long have you kind of been drawn to that ultra running side of things?
So essentially, I used to just spend my time bimbling around the hills, quite overweight, being quite lazy, spending all day just out enjoying the mountains, which was great. And then just over 6 years ago, my daughter was born, and my little girl Lily, and essentially I didn't have the time to go out anymore and spend all day in the mountains. So that kind of led to me kind of trying to get around them a little bit quicker. So started a bit of running. I think I did my first half marathon about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think similar to a lot of people's stories, within about the space of 6 months, I'd gone from first half marathon to first ultra marathon, and then kind of COVID. I suppose the pandemic started getting me out thinking more about the rounds and the different kind of self-navigated endurance kind of challenges that are out and about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the great thing as well is that whereabouts you live. It's roughly Abergavenny that you're based at. Um, I think it's such a fantastic area. What's surrounding you there? I know the Black Mountains, and you're not so far from the central fans. But how would you describe the Brecon Beacons to somebody who's not been to the area?
The Brecon Beacons National Park is in its entirety is just a runner's paradise. it's not quite got the same gnarly terrain as maybe Snowdonia, Awyr, or the lakes or that sort of thing. But it means that on a daily basis, all year round, in the Brecon Beacons, you can find somewhere to run. No matter how challenging the conditions are, there's places you can tuck out the way. And I'm really fortunate that I live in Abergavenny, so I basically live at the base of the Sugarloaf, so I'm able to get straight out from the front door, out into the hills and out into the Black Mountains. So the Black Mountains is like the eastern range of the national park, and it's where I really feel at home. It's where I spend a lot of my time training and guiding and just out and about exploring, really.
I think that's the great thing as well, is that the Black Mountains, it's such an expanse of trails, and such a fantastic area, and really a hidden gem, really, isn't it? In terms of the South Wales Traverse, can you talk us through what that is and how many peaks and things like that?
Yeah, so the South Wales Traverse was established in the early 80s, and it's kind of the South Wales equivalent of something like the Bob Graham Round or the Paddy Buckley, or those other bigger mountain rounds. So it's a bit longer than those. It's about 120k generally. People seem to do it in. Hasn't got the elevation that some of those bigger rounds has got, but then that does lend itself to, you've got a bit of a you feel that you need to be going that bit quicker because it hasn't got that kind of elevation of some of those bigger rounds. It summits 31 of the mountains in the Brecon Beacons that are over 610 meters. Some of those are quite significant summits, like Pen y Fan and Llangorse and other ones that people will probably be quite familiar with. But there's a lot of little ring contour type obscure hills in that, similar to the Paddy Buckley, that you've kind of got to go off piste. You're going to need to nav to get out to them. It's really interesting, and it really does kind of incorporate the history of South Wales as well. You go through some quarries. It's a really kind of special way to tie up the national park and the different ranges within the Brecon Beacons into one day out.
Yeah, and the Brecon Beacons, if anything, it's a bit more wild, isn't it? It's a bit more kind of when you're out there, you're out there. Like, certain sections of the Brecon Beacons, it's there's you do get that sense that there's nobody. There's absolutely nobody
yeah,
there.
I mean, the central beacons around the Pen y Fan area is a real honeypot area. It's very well walked. It's very busy. But like on the day of my traverse attempt, we spent the first 6 hours completely alone, didn't see a soul until we got to Story Arms over the central beacons, seen hundreds of people for about an hour, and then we were back out of it and out into the real depths of the national park, out exploring, really kind of rugged tussocks, no paths. It's beautiful for anyone that likes that side of adventure, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess really for the Winter Traverse, South Wales Traverse, you've got to know the area. You've got to have the ability to navigate. If somebody wanted to just line up, rock up and have a go at it, I guess they need to know a little bit more than just that. They need to, know how to read a map.
Oh, without doubt, there's definitely a need for mountain craft and for being able to navigate sufficiently in mountainous terrain.
Yeah.
And even as someone that has spent the last 12 years exploring this national park, I spend a lot of my time in it. I know the area, I'd say, very well. I still felt that I had to go and recce certain sections of this route quite a few times, because, like I said earlier, there's certain sections that are completely off piste. They're going through woodland. They're not on tracks. So getting good lines can be the difference between a good time and a really, really bad time.
So tell us a little bit about your attempt. How long were you planning it for, and then basically what time did you start, and how did you feel when you were getting underway?
So yes, essentially back last year, me and Tim again, we linked up all of the summits and the significant hills in the Black Mountains into one round, and we did that as a winter FKT as well, and a first known completion in general. And finished that, and it just so happened that it was nearly identical in distance and elevation to the South Wales Traverse. So naturally, being a bit cocky, I thought, you know what, we'll go straight for the Paddy Buckley after that. So back in April, I had a failed Paddy Buckley attempt down to some really poor weather coming in, about 70k in. Not a lot in terms of support in place there, so I ended up finishing that. So yeah, I turned back to the South Wales Traverse and kind of felt that maybe it was time to link up all these places I've been to, you know, over the last 10, 12 years and really kind of pay my respects, I suppose, to the route. It's a classic in South Wales amongst fell runners. So yeah, decided that me being me, I tend to get more time to train in the winter, that we'd go straight for a winter attempt, which just so happened to have the most perfect conditions on the day. Really, we had there was some pretty challenging conditions first thing in the morning in terms of like clag, bit of wind, bit of rain, and that western start point to the Traverse is probably the trickiest navigation wise as well. And we started in the dark, so we started off with all that kind of that extra element involved. But then as the day progressed, the weather was just astounding for a winter day out. You know, temperatures were pretty decent, wind was low. Yeah, it did really give us a good shot at a good time on it.
Yeah. In terms of footwear, what kind of footwear did you go for?
So for the Traverse, I used Innovate X Talon Ultras.
Yeah.
I've always been a big fan of Sportiva shoes. I tend to use those for most things, but I just found that the cushioning for those like ultra distance type things wasn't quite there. So yeah, they were a real good shoe, to be fair, for that sort of thing. They haven't quite got the aggressive grip that you might want, but over that kind of distance, it's just a balance, I guess, of what you're looking for in terms of like cushioning versus grip.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of support, I know that Tim was running with you. Did you have anybody else with you on the mountains at all? And did you have any ground support?
Yeah, so my lovely wife actually had volunteered herself to be road support for the whole day, but it was then taken over by my uncle Gwyn from Neath, who's used to be big into the outdoors as a younger man. So he really enjoyed being out, and it was great to have that road support in place, and just getting those real quick changeovers. You know, just quickly restocking on food, bit of water, and gone. On the hills, I was really kind of lucky to have a big show out from Mynydd Fell Running Club, which I'm a member of. They're a fantastic club down in South Wales, and they're doing huge things with juniors as well, getting a lot of young people out accessing the fells and running. So I had a load of runners from Mynydd out to support me on different sections as well, which was really nice. And obviously, yeah, Tim seeing it through to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good that that's they're engaging and the younger generation and really kind of like showing them the trails. Really, that's essential. Really, to kind of pass on what's our love for it, our shared love for it. In terms of the hardest parts of the South Wales Traverse, I know you mentioned that you started the most tricky navigation part during the night. What were the hardest parts of the challenge itself for you?
Surprisingly, it was actually over the central beacons that I had a bit of a moment, really, and not in terms of the terrain, because actually it was probably the easiest part of the whole day was getting over
Yeah.
Pen y Fan and that kind of area. It really is. The paths are there. Navigation is easy. In fact, even like the kind of gradient of the slopes and things around there isn't particularly challenging. I think I just had a bit of a mental block because we'd come into the Story Arms car park about 15 minutes behind schedule.
Right.
And I think I just kind of had that then reoccurring in my head and started playing on my mind a bit. And I seemed to slow down a lot over the central beacons. And then as soon as we kind of left civilization again, I perked straight back up and kind of got right back into it. So that was challenging. But I suppose in the Black Mountains round did the year before and on South Wales Traverse, it shares a part of the route that equally on both rounds is late in the day. And it's just everyone I've spoken to that has kind of has done the South Wales Traverse has said the same, is the section from Cwrdd, which is the highest point in Gwent, to Rhostirien, which is the next summit. So it's about, I think it's about 5 or 6 miles maybe, and it's just ever so slightly uphill. It's not unrunnable, but it's about 90k into the day. So it's just soul destroying. You know, it's completely, you're on a ridge. So if the weather's bad, you're not hiding from it in any way.
Yeah.
And I just felt I was going incredibly slowly at that point and really starting to kind of get into a bit of a hole. But then, yeah, as anyone who kind of gets involved in this sport will know, you know, you have those moments, but they do pass, and then you can start feeling great again and carrying on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing with the beacons as well. The Brecon Beacons is that it seems to have its own little climate, so you can be, you can be absolutely fine, and then you'll be hit by something, in terms of the weather. So it does seem to have its own kind of wants to do what it wants to do, you know.
Absolutely, and the Black Mountains especially is just such a vast open area that if the weather does come in and you're on the tops, there's no hiding from it. It's not like the fells in the lakes or North Wales where you could kind of cut down behind a ridge line or something like that. You know, you're just up on the top and you're exposed to it. So yeah,
it's like
it's
a
good fun if
plateau,
that's your
isn't it?
idea of fun.
Yeah, it's a plateau. I mean, it is absolutely stunning when you're up there to look down, but when you're battered by all the elements, it's a different story, isn't it? Every single piece of kit you're going to scrutinize again, So, in terms of the highlights for it, it must have been really nice to be running beside Tim. But also, were there any kind of moments where you're like thinking, absolutely fantastic, you wouldn't want to be anywhere else at this moment in time?
The whole day, really. I mean, it was a special thing to kind of link up all those places that, from like being in my late teens to now, really, to kind of link them into one day was almost like a big Brecon Beacons National Park appreciation day for me. And just to see so much of so many of the running community out as well, it's getting a bit anxious leading up to it, that maybe I wouldn't get that much support on the day in terms of people coming out and running sections with me. But yeah, Minute D Fell Club were just amazing. Like, those who couldn't get out on the hill were on road crossings, like with extra food, ringing cowbells. It was a real special day. And to finish and to have the weather kind of line up with the date as well, and it kind of all just came together really nicely. So it was it was a quality day out.
How would you describe the South Wales Traverse for somebody who was maybe traveling from Lake District or Snowdonia or something like that?
Don't underestimate it. Like I said earlier, it's the elevation isn't there, the technical terrain that you get in the lakes or Snowdonia isn't there.
Yeah.
But that means that you can move a lot faster, and moving a lot faster brings its own challenges with it. There's a lot more in terms of nav of going off piste off the side of hills to save time. You're not sticking to tracks as much. I've recce'd most of the Bob Graham round. I've recce'd all of the Paddy Buckley round, and for the majority of it, there's trods that you can follow. That's not so much the case on the Traverse. You will have to navigate, especially if the clag comes in. And yeah, there's a lot to see. It's well worth a go.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of just so because I know it's obviously the winter FKT, what were the conditions underfoot? Was I mean, at the moment, this moment in time, there's snow all over the place. That's hit Britain. But what were the conditions for you on that particular day?
Yeah, I feel really cheeky for nabbing a winter kind of record on such a mild day. Really, it was absolutely spot on for running conditions. Apart from in the morning, there was a lot of clag early on, cold, windy, probably for the first 2 or 3 hours, and then as we kind of got over the Carmarthen vans and entered into the Forest of Awyr kind of area, the cloud just lifted. It must have been about 3 or 4 degrees, just a very slight breeze, nothing much at all. Westerly as well, so kind of nudging you along on the route. It was, yeah, you couldn't have asked for better conditions for winter, really. In fact, when I got over the central beacons, I had to change out of tights into shorts and did the rest of the traverse in shorts, which is, you know, kind of unheard of really in mid-February to be running in the beacons in in shorts.
I think it was probably only me and you, you know, that kind of time wearing shorts in the Brecon Beacons. So yeah, no, it's it was the wind chill a couple of weeks ago was, I think it was like -15 when I was on the Carmarthen fans. So I know it can hit you, you know, and it's very exposed at times. No, that's brilliant. In terms of what the mountains mean to yourself, how would you describe it for you? What does it mean to you?
To be honest, the outdoors and the mountains specifically, it's my entire life. It's what I do for a living. It's what I do with my family, with my friends. If I'm not sat on this laptop, then that's where we are. We're in the mountains, and if we're home, then we're out in the Blacks, exploring there. And if we're on holiday, then we're in the lakes or in North Wales, or, you know, hoping to head over to the Alps and that sort of stuff. So you know, my entire adult life has been kind of engrossed by being in the mountains. So it's home, essentially.